Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 164 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, joined by a full house of co-hosts and some very special guests. We'll go right off the top with our guest of the evening. He is Josh Kendall, at Josh the Athletic. On the Twitters, Josh is the newest Falcons beat writer for The Athletic. Josh, thanks so much for coming on, and how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you making the time. We're also joined by the Falcoholic himself. He is Dave Choate at the Falcoholic on Twitter. Dave, how are you doing?
Well, it's Saints week, and I could feel better about the Falcons heading into it, so I guess I'm okay.
Yeah. It's a little sketchy. I would like to feel more confident going into a matchup with the Saints. Unfortunately, not feeling super confident, but we're going to get to that. Also with us tonight, we have Director of Guest Personnel, Evan Birchfield. Evan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely. And finally, last but not least, Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way, recently returned from his all-night party celebrating the Braves World Series. Go Braves, by the way. Adnan, how you feeling?
Better than ever. I haven't thought about the Falcons all day.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a feat I think all of us wish we could replicate sometimes.
It's unfortunate that we're dragging you back to it, but here we are.
all it took was a world championship for another Atlanta team.
Yeah, hey, those grow on trees, as we all know, so that should be a very frequent occurrence in your lifetime. But yeah, obviously we're all very excited about the Braves, happy for all you Braves fans. I'm sure there's a bunch of you in here. And here to talk some Falcons, because I am a total neophyte when it comes to baseball, but I will say that I kept my promise. I did not turn on the Braves game, the Braves run at all, because as we all know, I was personally responsible for Ronald Acuna's injury. You know, I watched the Braves for about 2 minutes while I was at a bar, and then he got hurt. So I kept my promise. I never watched them again, and now we have a World Series. So I guess I just can never ever watch the Braves again. I will gladly fall on that sword for everyone else that enjoys the Braves. But let's get right to it, Josh. I know Josh is making some time for us, doesn't have a ton tonight, so we'll go to Josh immediately here. And let's talk about this Panthers game, Josh. Obviously a disappointing outcome if you're a Falcons fan. A little bit of a tough watch. What are your thoughts on the Falcons' performance against the Panthers on Sunday?
I mean, it was bad, and it was surprisingly bad from my standpoint. I'm still getting used to. We talked off air or off the live stream, and I'm still new to the NFL. I've spent 20 years in college football, and I think that a bad loss in college football is a lot different than a bad loss in the NFL. I understand that this is much more of a week-to-week league, and these things pop up, and you can't necessarily extrapolate anything beyond the whistle. You know, it's not like, this week matters for next week, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like this team, was just kind of pantsed by Philadelphia, an average Philadelphia team in the opener, gave one away against Washington, and then gave another one away against a Panthers team that was just playing basically one-handed. I think that the Calvin Ridley absence, specifically the late notice of the Calvin Ridley absence, affected the offense. The offense had looked pretty good for a couple of weeks and just did nothing. I mean, for all the rushing yards that the Panthers got, that loss was on the offense, an offense that just couldn't pee a drop. That's frustrating for Arthur Smith. I know that's frustrating for Falcons fans. I'm not ready to say, the Falcons are doomed now, but boy, the more you let these games like this get away, the more you think, I don't know.
Yeah, it was a tough watch, and you're absolutely right. Like, I know it was really, speaking of tough to watch the defense get absolutely, steamrolled on the ground. But at the end of the day, it was only 19 points allowed. They only allowed 4 field goals on defense.
This is what Dean Pease is going to do. He's been pretty clear about that. And if you read between the lines, it's even clearer. He is going to play a lot of soft zone. He is just going to catch people coming down the field and be fairly content to let them come down to the 20-yard line, 25, and hope for the best down there. I don't think we're going to see a defense that's going to stonewall anybody. The best you can hope for is good red zone defense, better third down defense than you saw against the Panthers,
right, and
the offense to outscore opponents. This is up to Arthur Smith and his side of the ball this season, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that's always how it was going to be, considering how bare the cupboard was for Dean Pease and Arthur Smith when they arrived, particularly on the defensive side. It was always going to be the offense's show, and the defense just needed to sort of do enough to keep the game close, and the offense was going to have to bring it home. And so far, that's basically been the situation this year. And when the offense can't move the ball, it's probably going to look a lot like it did against Carolina. And, it's noteworthy that the Panthers were the best defense the Falcons have faced thus far. I 100% agree with you that the late notice, I think it showed that the team was not prepared to play without Calvin Ridley, because previously when it was sort of known that he would be out, it looked like they had game planned around it. They had more
they had
wrinkles.
2 or 3 days at least to get ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. They had some wrinkles in there. Looks like they were planning to use the other personnel more, and it looked without Ridley in this game, it really showed, because I think, like I said, the Panthers are the best defense they've played, and there just wasn't anybody really taking advantage of the fact that the Panthers were sort of dedicating multiple guys to Kyle Pitts on every play.
Falcons had Felipe Franks just out there running pass routes, just taking up space.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he had to be the guy that they put up in Ridley's place, and Smith just said, I just want you to go run a bunch of go routes and try to, wave your hands and get somebody's attention.
Yeah.
So they were really operating on the fly, it looked like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was tough to watch that. Difficult game. Obviously, the offense is not the worst performance, because like you mentioned the Philadelphia game, that definitely takes the cake for worst offensive performance. That was a real tough game to watch. But, it's tough playing a really good defense like Carolina's, and obviously them getting Shaq Thompson back was absolutely massive for that defense. I mean, he was arguably their best defensive player. So, he was out there making big-time plays all over the field. And, things don't necessarily get any easier this week against the Saints, because that's another really good defense that I think matches up well with the Falcons. How are you feeling going into this divisional matchup with a Saints team that's now missing Jameis Winston?
Well, I think obviously everyone wants to know whether it's, Falcons fans are going to see their nightmare quarterback Taysom Hill again, or if they're going to see Trevor Siemian. I think that Arthur Smith kind of expects to see Trevor Siemian, but again, this comes back to Atlanta's offense. New Orleans has got a good, aggressive defense, but Atlanta, I think Smith is really sharp. I don't expect Calvin Ridley to return to return Sunday, although Arthur Smith said today he didn't know. He was not sure one way or the other. So they're going to have to come up with some stuff. But I think Arthur Smith can do that with a week to plan. I don't expect another Kyle Pitts performance like we saw Sunday against the Panthers. I think Atlanta can score some points. I think it is important for Atlanta to have a better performance. It's important for Atlanta to win. If this team is going to – Arthur Smith talked today about, being part of the middle and feeling like you got to start – you got to keep improving – that you're playing important games in December. Well, the chances to be playing important games in December are running out. In the next 2 weeks, you go to a pretty good New Orleans team and a really good Dallas team. I mean, 3-4, you're okay. 3-6, that's not great. This is a big game.
Yeah,
and that's what compounds this Panthers loss even more.
Right.
The fact that if you're 4-3, then okay, you're feeling good. This is one of your toughest stretches of the season right now, but you're already below water right now, and now you have to go to New Orleans, and doesn't matter who their quarterback is, they just beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Trevor Siemian under center for most of that game, and Dallas is looking scary good. Like, Dan Quinn has that defense playing manageably well, which is something they haven't had for years, and that offense is killer right now.
Yeah, even with Cooper Rush. So, this is without a doubt one of the most difficult stretches of the schedule, and the Falcons really have to come away with one win over these next few games to sort of tread water. The good news is the NFC wildcard spots are pretty much wide open. There's just a total cluster of teams all in this sort of 4-4, 500 range. Right now it looks like the Panthers
are starting to get away, though. The Saints are starting. Yeah. There's a 5-team group up there that looks like they're gone. You write them off. And then there's the middle. But the Saints, you better be careful about the Saints, because you can't let them get away, because if they get away, then they take that 6th spot, and then everybody else is fighting for 1. You cut your chances in half. This is a big game.
Josh, how close of a must-win would you say this is, even though it is in New Orleans?
I know it's in New Orleans and it's just barely November. It's right next, whatever the next category is. I'm not ready to call it a must win, but it's right there. It's right there, the notch below. I agree that you've got to get. If you're going to have realistic playoff shots, you need to come out of the next 2 weeks 4 and 5 rather than 3 and 6, right?
I'd agree with
So,
that.
and if you're looking at these 2 games, this is. I mean, I don't expect Cooper Rush to still be Dallas's quarterback in 2 weeks. You're looking at Dak again. So take your best chances against Trevor Siemian / Taysom Hill, 2-headed monster. So this is the one you need to get.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the fact that it's a divisional game too, these always tend to be a little funky.
Right.
Like no one really expected the Saints to be able to beat the Bucs, much less with Trevor Siemian, but that happened, and Tom Brady didn't play a great game at the end. So anything can happen. What, in your mind, Josh? What do the Falcons need to do to beat the Saints? Considering that they do have a very good defense, and they're probably going to be very run heavy, which, as against the Panthers, was not really a good thing for the Falcons.
Right. Well, I think the Falcons have got to figure out a run game. I mean, and I don't mean they have to increase their run percentage. They just have to run more efficiently when they do run. Arthur Smith in Tennessee the last 2 years was 48% and higher on run percentage. Atlanta, that finished 3rd in the league both of those years. Atlanta right now is 24th in the league in run percentage at like 36%. Obviously, Derrick Henry and a really good run-blocking offensive line is the difference. When you have Derrick Henry in that line, you do that. When you have these guys in this line and Kyle Pitts and sometimes Calvin Ridley, you do this. But Atlanta doesn't have to run it a ton, but they've got to run it a lot more effectively. I think Cordero Patterson's been one of the neatest stories in the NFL so far. But he and Mike Davis have not given them a traditional run game that scares you. Carolina had an 11-minute time possession advantage against Atlanta. New Orleans will be more than happy to do that exact same thing with Kamara. You just can't let them. You've got to be able to run the ball and take some time off the clock and get 4 yards at the same time. You can't just run 3 times and then punt. That doesn't help you. Atlanta, last time I checked, had its longest run was 17 yards. I'm not sure. Did that Mike Davis run against the Panthers? Did that get longer than 17 yards?
I think it was 18. I think it was 18 or 19. So
that still leaves Atlanta and the Jets as the least explosive run teams. I mean, everybody else has had at least something of 25, something like that. They've gotten no easy, cheap, quote unquote, cheap yards in the run game. A 35-yard run would do wonders for morale at Flowery Ranch.
Yeah, I agree. And, with Cordero Patterson, you would think that they would be a more explosive run team, and perhaps they will if he does end up getting a higher percentage of the carries. That's not really Mike Davis's style in terms of being a big explosive runner. Most of Patterson's explosive plays, there's been plenty, have been on dump-offs, and screens and short passes, that sort of thing. They're not technically runs, but, they're somewhat similar. So it's just...
Yeah.
And there's been a couple of shoestring tackles on Patterson too, where I was like, oh, if that guy doesn't get him down, that's like a 40-yard run. He's got daylight. So probably some bad luck there. And also I think that the Falcons' offensive line is just a lot better pass blocking line than a run blocking line. They've been very sort of hit or miss with the run blocking. Pass blocking has been pretty good. They struggled against the Panthers, one of the NFL's best pass rushes, but it's tough. And hopefully run blocking I think is much more of a comfort thing and an experience thing that you get when you have the 5 guys playing next to each other, and these guys obviously have only played a handful of games together. So,
and I think it'll be so important to scheme Cordero Patterson into space this week. The Saints aren't a run defense where you can just go at them head on, and that's why I feel like Mike Davis will kind of be a bit of a sacrificial lamb this week. He'll be used for the short yardage, but I feel like at the end of the day, we'll look at the stat sheet and we may say, oh, Mike Davis didn't really have a very good game, when he maybe will do what he needs to, what he's asked to do. But this Saints run defense is arguably the best in the NFL right now. They're right up there with the Bills. They just shut down Leonard Fournette and the Bucs run offense completely. I feel like it'll be a mistake if you just went in there and tried to beat them head on, one-on-one. I think it'll take some creativity from Mike Smith to really unlock this run game a little bit.
You just said Mike Smith, but I agree.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My apologies.
I was going to let that go, but thank you,
Burned
Dave.
into your brain. I get it.
Yeah.
If it's going to take creative thinking from Mike Smith to beat the Saints, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Mike Smith hasn't. Mike Smith didn't beat the Saints much, so I hope Arthur Smith has more success.
Yeah. Don't want to channel Mike Smith too much in this one. I've asked all the questions, but we've got time for maybe one or two more. If any of you guys have questions for Josh, anybody?
I'll ask one. Josh, based on what you said, I'll take it Patterson to you is the most, I guess, exciting story on offense. What would you say is defensive? The most exciting, like, defensive player to you right now?
I wondered if it was going to be Dante Fowler in kind of a career resurrection. That may be a little dramatic, but he was really rounding into shape in this defense before the knee injury. Which is unfortunate for the Falcons and for him because I think he fits well in a Dean Pease defense. Grady Jarrett is playing really well. But if you're looking at one guy, it's A.J. Terrell. I think he's got a chance to be an elite type guy, and sooner rather than later. He's playing really well. He's playing man coverage as well as anybody in the league or anybody in the NFC right now, and I think that includes Jalen Ramsey. I think the last number I saw was 199 coverage snaps, no touchdowns. I think A.J. Terrell is emerging as a star in this league, and it will be a household name by this point next year. And maybe I'm getting over my skis a little bit, but I think he's really good.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think he is really good. He's not going to get the credit he deserves on this defense right now. But I think, if this team becomes competitive and is in the playoffs, I think he'll start to get the shine. But right now,
guys have kind of got to do it a year in obscurity before anybody pays attention, and then everybody will look in the offseason and realize he played pretty well. He goes into next year with people paying attention. So if he backs it up, if he does it a second year, then I think that's when you reach that. Not Jalen Ramsey territory, but NFL fans know who you are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One last thing for me before we let you go, Josh. The Falcons didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. Didn't really surprise me. Were you sort of expecting any moves to happen, or was this pretty much what you expected going in?
I didn't expect them to be dramatic moves or major players. I wouldn't have been surprised if they had gotten something for Josh Andrews or Hayden Hurst. If they moved those two guys, I think Hurst is a good player, and that's one reason I thought they might move him, because I thought they might get something for him, and he's never going to be the first option in that tight end room because you've got Kyle Pitts. They seem to like Jalen Mayfield at guard, and I think he could have a good future there at guard. That leaves Josh Andrews, who's a starter quality player at many places in this league, without a starting spot. So I thought you might get something for him too. They clearly either don't look at the situation the same way I do, or just didn't get what they thought made it worth it.
Yeah, I agree with Hayden Hurst. I think we all sort of thought that was the most likely move to happen, and the fact that they didn't move him probably means that the offers weren't good enough, and they're just going to sort of take their chances and see, if maybe if he gets a big deal, or maybe he'll play better over the second half of this year, get a big deal, and then they get a better comp pick, next year, as opposed to trading him for like a 6th or 7th now, which just really isn't worth it. It's sort of a throwaway. So
I have one more question for Josh, just not Falcons related. How have you enjoyed it so far? Covering the team, working for The Athletic?
I enjoyed working for The Athletic. I worked for The Athletic prior to this, covering South Carolina, but my background has been 20 years of college football, essentially 10 years covering Georgia and then 10 years covering South Carolina. So, just in terms of a change of pace, this has been nice. I'm still getting, the road trips. Miami and New Orleans and Dallas are different from, Starkville and Gainesville. So that's been nice.
Yeah.
But I'm still learning the rhythms of the NFL. And when you look at the NFL, obviously we're just media, but once you're part of this monster that is the NFL, you kind of feel like you get swept up in its tractor beam. I don't know. It's a whole thing from the fact that when we get here, we have tracers. We turn in our car keys and get tracers as part of the COVID protocol. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like there's no messing around at the NFL. This, we are, this is our show. We run it this way, and that's from top to bottom. So but I've enjoyed it. It's been fun.
Yeah, Glad to hear that, guys. He is Josh Kendall, at Josh the Athletic. Very easy to remember. Josh, anything that you'd like to plug before we let you go?
Just the Athletic. We'd love to have you. Thanks to everybody who subscribes. If you don't join us, I don't know if I'll alone make it worth your while. We got tons of other folks too, and they will. So come join us. I appreciate y'all having me, guys. We'll do it. Let's do it again in the second half.
Absolutely, we will.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you,
All right,
Josh.
have a good night, man.
Y'all too.
All right, guys, that was Josh Kendall. Great to finally have him on. I know DW has requested him on the podcast as well. So for those of you that listen to the Falcoholic podcast, which you should, obviously, definitely keep an eye out for his appearance on there as well. All right, now we can finally get some of everybody else involved. Just wanted to make sure Josh still at the team facility. This man working hard, so wanted to make sure he had a chance to actually get home and probably eat, do other human things. So good for him. Thank him for coming on for sure. But yeah, let's back it up a little bit. Back to the Panthers game. Before we get started on that, just want to remind folks to please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Make sure to check out the community Discord server. The link to that's in the show description. You can check out our Patreon page if you're interested in supporting the show. That's patreon.com/Falcoholic Lots of cool stuff on there. Our next Q&A is coming up real soon. Still working on the scheduling for that. And for those of you that are listeners to the Falcoholic Live, I know we have a lot of people that listen on the podcast platforms. If you're a patron, you get access to the podcasts early. They're ad-free. They're high quality, completely uncompressed audio. So if you're really into that stuff, that's on the Patreon as well. All right. So Dave, now that Josh is gone, you can have all the shine. Okay, George, I'm going to get to your thing. Give me a second, George. I need to work up to that. Okay. Yeah. 1 second, George. Dave, what are your thoughts on the Panthers? Yeah, I know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go. Go ahead.
I need to work up to that. It's also really long, so I don't want to butcher it. So yeah, Dave, give us your thoughts on the Panthers. Game.
Well, I can tell you that my big thing was every time that Sam Darnold took the ball down to run, I was yelling, balderdash at the TV, except it wasn't balderdash. It was more what, Adnan was trying not to say on air. But that game was deep. That game was really frustrating. I just thought, the absence of Calvin Ridley was probably a factor, but that doesn't explain the run defense, which, I have an article coming tomorrow on just kind of this week's big question being, can they stop the run? Because they didn't. The Darnold scrambles were incredibly frustrating. They allowed over 200 yards on the ground. That Panthers passing game didn't do a whole lot. I think we've seen a lot of good things in coverage from the secondary in particular. I think Eric Harris is coming on. Fabian Moreau is coming on. Terrell is shut down, as Evan wrote today. So, being able to take even Sam Darnold, who is obviously struggling, and hold him to the kind of passing performance he had, but to allow the Panthers to essentially beat you on the ground, that was a tough pill to swallow. So, it worries me that with Taysom Hill coming back for New Orleans, with the Saints certainly having a capable run game, that they're just going to look at that Carolina game plan and say, we can replicate that, and that the Falcons don't have a great answer for that isn't let's play James Vaughters more, which doesn't feel like it's going to get the job done by itself. So to me, I think that was the worst part of that. The offense, as Josh said earlier, I don't expect that to happen 2 weeks in a row. I think Arthur Smith has shown, even if there's some lapses here, and certainly last week would qualify as a lapse, that this team offensively tends to learn from their mistakes and get it back together. And with so many mistakes a week ago, I think they'll be more ready for this one. They'll be able to stay competitive and score some points, even against a very good Saints defense. So to me, you'll probably see better on that side of the ball. My concern remains that, New Orleans is going to be able to kind of do whatever they want, even though they don't have Winston and a capable cast of receivers. And so my hope is that was kind of a one and done with Carolina. Obviously, it was the worst performance of the year for the run defense, but I think it's telling that the two worst, both teams that had almost 200 yards, were the Eagles and the Panthers. And that those games got wildly out of hand. Like if this Falcons defense can't stop the run at all, it does not put them in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with you there. And like, you look at the score, like the game, I think felt a lot worse than the score actually was. I think that you look at the Falcons' reasons for losing, and like they gave up a ton on the ground, but they really didn't let the Panthers score a lot. It was sort of the way the game went, and the fact that the Falcons just shot themselves in the foot like 3 times. And if they don't shoot themselves in the foot any one of those times, they're probably in a position to win this game at the end instead of desperately kicking a field goal, trying to get an onside kick, and all that crap. So, I think if Younghoe Koo hits that field goal, which he almost never misses, then there's only a 6-point deficit at the end. So they're probably just going for a touchdown there. There's a chance to win there. Matt Ryan doesn't throw that first pick after his hand is like mauled by a cleat. If they get any points on that drive, same situation. And then again, they were mounting a promising drive, and another interception happened. That one was obviously not good. They get any points on that drive, again, same situation. So difficult to watch, but as bad as the game felt, probably wasn't as dire as it sort of seemed. But as I think Adnan mentioned, losing this game ups the stakes for this Saints game a lot, because now you're in a situation where you're below 500, and now you're chasing 2 division rivals that are both ahead of you for the wild card race. And it's just really difficult to get out of that hole now. If you drop any of these next few games against NFC contenders, it's like now you got to get wins against some of the toughest teams left on your schedule. Adnan, how are you feeling after this Panthers loss? I know you were hoping to come in here with the Falcons getting their first winning record in years, and you were going to start the playoff train. Where are you now?
I'm disgusted. I was legitimately disgusted watching this game. It felt like we were getting squeezed and bled out slowly throughout the entire afternoon.
Yeah.
And it was one of those games where you just got out-efforted and outbeat, because that's what happens when you lose in the trenches so bad. No amount of scheming could have, nothing that Arthur Smith could have done on offense could have really helped, given how emphatically the offensive line lost their battle against the defensive line. And the defensive line was even worse. Like, it was an absolutely disgusting performance from an effort standpoint. And it was one of the most frustrating football games I've watched, because, how can it not be frustrating where the other team bleeds so much clock and you just let them do it, and you know exactly what's coming next. You know that they're not looking to pass the ball with Sam Darnold. They did not trust Sam Darnold enough to pass the ball. They deliberately made this a one-dimensional offense, a one-dimensional rushing attack, and you just let them do it. And they didn't even have Christian McCaffrey. It's not like they have Derrick Henry where he's just bleeding you out. They were killing you with Chuba Hubbard, with Amir Abdullah. I don't know. There aren't enough negative terms for me to use to describe this game, because, one of the things that I keep saying over and over again is that no matter how analytical the sport gets, no matter, how much math is involved, football will always, at its core, by its nature, be won in the trenches. Football is a sport that's won by blocking and by tackling. And if you lose both facets of the game the way that they lost it, I don't care. You could have rolled the 2007 Patriots out there and their skill position players, or, the secondary, the Legion of Boom secondary of the Seattle Seahawks, and they would have lost that game, because, that's what'll happen when you lose so much up front. It is the second most frustrating thing for me. Like, for me as a football fan, for me to watch my team to lose the battle of the trenches that emphatically. The first would be careless and stupid turnovers.
Yeah.
but it was one of the worst performances I've seen from both units along the line all season. I feel like for the offensive and defensive line, that was even worse than the Philadelphia Eagles game, even though overall the offense was worse against the Eagles. But yeah, I was absolutely disgusted, and I know for a fact that Arthur Smith was disgusted. They
Yeah.
just got out efforted out there, and you know I have no words for how bad it was. I don't have a single good thing to say about either of those units.
Yeah, and I mean it's like the defense. It was like just a demoralizing loss the way they lost, and like they didn't give up a ton of points. They definitely really didn't let the Panthers passing game do a whole lot, but like, just demoralizing to see them struggle that much with the run game, and it's a problem I think a lot of us sort of theorized about in the offseason when the Falcons sort of didn't. They were going to more of a 3-4 defense. They didn't really have a traditional 3-4 nose tackle. And when you've got linebackers like Deion Jones and Foye Oluokun, who are good coverage guys, and like they're good tacklers for their size, but these are not guys that are going to be shedding blocks and taking guys head on and, sort of being able to sift through traffic and make big plays against the run on their own. They need a big space eater in front of them, and they don't really have one. I mean, I think Tyler Davison is a good 4-3 nose, but being asked to play a true 3-4 nose tackle role is always going to be something that is not really a great fit for him. And even as a nose tackle in general, I think Davison's pretty average. So this was just asking for trouble, and this was the perfect game script for the Panthers to just blast the Falcons on the ground. If the Falcons are playing better on offense and have a lead most of this game, Panthers aren't running the ball like this. But they just couldn't get out of their own way in the second half, and those turnovers really sunk them. But
What I hate, and I know I've talked for a while, is the defensive line just looked like it quit toward the end of the game. Like they got their ass beat over and over again. And in that fourth quarter, it looked like they just completely folded. And that's the worst part about it for me, because yes, if you lose, if you're in a back and forth game, like for example, we were all furious about that Washington loss.
yeah,
But they went out there, and credit to Washington, they made some plays. We had some singular players making some mistakes, but just the defensive line, the front seven as a unit, they just went out there and quit. And I'll never be able to accept that.
yeah. I mean, without Dante Fowler, as much as we all crapped on Dante Fowler in the offseason for his very bad 2020, like he's like head and shoulders above every other edge they have on the roster. And without him out there, it's like pretty damn egregious as to like how bad the team actually is. In terms of the edge defending group, and like we mentioned it, like they don't have a real true nose tackle, and the defensive tackles in general are still like 4-3 guys. They're not really these bigger guys that you might need to stop the run, and it shows. And we've talked about Jordan Davis, and that pick is seeming more and more likely every time something like this happens. And it's not something I would be against at this point after watching the team get bulldozed on the ground. You get someone like Jordan Davis in here, and that will never happen again. So it's tough. It's tough to watch. Evan, did you have a take on this Panthers game before we move on?
No, not a whole lot. I think Adnan pretty much summed it up perfectly. There's like three guys, like legit three guys on this team that I think could have walked away from Sunday's game not feeling like they let the team down. And I think that's Patterson. I think he just continues to, I mean, everything he's doing is remarkable, especially at his age, given how much time he's been in the league, and like he's, legit on the ground as a running back, and what he's doing through the air. The other is AJ Terrell. I think he just continues to prove his case. I mean, I guess you could also throw in Grady Jarrett. He's, there's only so much he can do by himself.
Exactly.
But I think underrated was Tajay Sharp. I don't know the extent of how soon. I know they said like a couple hours before game day, but I mean, he was basically thrust into being the number one receiver. Russell Gage, he's on the injury report with a groin injury. I don't know when that happened, but it was enough to where he wasn't even targeted at all in that game.
No.
So Tajay Sharp instantly becomes, your wide receiver one, and I thought he did pretty well considering. And going forward, I don't know how much like Marvin Hall is going to play into it, and assuming Gage gets back on the field, but Matt Ryan seemed to trust him a little bit with Kyle Pitts pretty much being shut down because of how the defense just focused on him. But aside from those four, everybody else just pretty much shit the bed.
Yeah, I need to take my victory lap for Tajay Sharp, wide receiver 3. That was my preseason prediction, and he might end up being more than that by the end of the season if things go really south. But yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people were really excited about Sharp's game, but I think that's sort of what he is. Like, I think if you're asking Sharp to do more than like 5 for 58 in a game, like I don't know, that's a great recipe for offensive success. I think Sharp is a good chain mover, a good possession guy. But he shouldn't be the focal point of your passing offense. I think the Falcons know that. But I do think he's a capable guy, someone that Matt Ryan can rely on, who can have a real role for this team, maybe, past this year as a reliable guy, because they need people to step up. And it may have to be Sharp for a while. Like Evan said, we'll see about Marvin Hall, who we'll talk about here in just a minute. But
going forward, assuming, Gage whatever's going on with his groin injury, if he was to miss Sunday's game, I think Tajay Sharp still probably gets most out of the receivers, not Kyle Pitts, just because of his recent connections with Matt Ryan. But obviously Marvin Hall, slowly, actually, it might be even quicker than we think, just because of
he's got the chemistry already. Yeah,
right, and what's available on the roster. So.
Yeah,
it kills me that I made that it's Tajay Sharp time joke repeatedly on Twitter, and every joke I make is ultimately cursed to come true in the worst way possible. So it's like, this is not how I wanted Sharp to have a major role, but he's doing well with it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I like Sharp. We'll talk about him more in just a minute as we get to some of these roster moves. But before that, I got to give George Costanza his moment in the sun here. George Costanza sets the all-time Falcoholic live record for biggest tip with his $150 donation. George, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you.
Oh, you're saying that with Dave on? He's going to take his 20.
Yeah, Dave's getting his cut now. He's like, okay, I was on for this one. That's why it happened.
Dave is going to take $149.
I was going to say 25%. What did my rate go down?
That's what we get. Yeah, 25% of 25%. Yeah.
25.
You think these minor league baseball caps just buy themselves? I don't think so.
I only got 25 cents last time.
Yeah,
that's all you'll get this time. Yeah.
If you don't shut it up, you're not going to get anything. So, but yes, thank you so much, George.
Hey Penny.
Yeah, hey Penny. There you go. He says Braves win, Braves win, Braves win. I called it odd and on. You doubted them. On that note, did you doubt them?
George, you're right. I did not. And I'd just like to say, I did not think that the Braves were going to win it this year. Like, after the Acuna injury, I was like, it's just so much bad happened to this team that I was like, all right, it's just one of those we'll get him next year type things, because Soroka tore his Achilles, Ozuna had his incidents that kept him out for the season. I'm not going to elaborate on those. The Acuna injury, even getting into the playoffs, you had Charlie Morton breaking his leg, and none of it mattered at all because this team got hot at the right time.
Yeah.
And they just overcame every bit of adversity, and I'm so proud of them. With how I am as proud of the Braves as I am disgusted with the Falcons over these past few years, which is a lot.
That's a lot.
Because the Braves have just been a top-class organization, and they did it the right way with that rebuild. I remember watching those seasons in 2015 when they were losing almost 100 games, convincing myself that maybe they have a chance at making the playoffs those years the same way I do with the Falcons. And yeah, they got hot. It reminds me of that 2016 Falcons run for a fact, where they peaked at the right time, except this time the Braves actually did get it done in Houston while the Falcons shit the bed in Houston.
Yeah, I agree there. George continued saying more Braves takes. So, you guys want to parse these out, but hope we resign Freddie Freeman, right? I know that, to a reasonable deal. I'm afraid of a Chris Davis situation like in Baltimore. Can't comment on that. He says, no, this is a Falcons podcast, but finally an ATL team that didn't choke. Yeah, I'm hoping that this, breaks the curse. So Braves, good job. Hopefully the floodgates will open now. Because I think the Hawks can compete this year too. I also know very little about basketball, but I'll consider watching the Hawks because they seem fun. So
the Hawks got to the last four.
Yeah.
UGA is looking
yeah.
prime to win a title this year.
So if UGA wins it, then I think we know that it's like, okay, the Falcons we're getting
floodgates
there.
are opening. The floodgates are opening for everyone but the Falcons.
Yep. Well, some people will probably be okay with sacrificing the Falcons. I'm not one of them. So please don't sacrifice the Falcons. But hopefully we can all share in the new order of non-choking. That's my hope.
For me, watching it, I think I'm like Kevin, where like I don't watch baseball ever, but I was hoping, obviously, since it's an Atlanta-based team, that they would win, just so all these people who are also Falcons fans could experience some sort of joy. And I mean, I was so jealous seeing how happy everyone was. Like, I would just love a taste of that. And I mean, I don't want to go down, talk about that one game that could have delivered that taste. But it's like for a brief minute, I remember having that, and I saw it, through all the Braves fans celebrating, and I think it's just good for the city. But yeah, I need the Falcons to get at least competitive soon.
Yeah, Falcons need to, get on some of this good vibes as well, in my opinion. So, all right, next up we got Soler, a.k.a. Guy Fieri, with the $3. Thank you so much, Soler. He says, shout out to the World Series MVP, Jorge Soler. I get it. Praise the sun. My question, obviously we can't get OBJ due to cap implications, but this offseason maybe we could sign him for peanuts if we could. Would you do it? He's got that yards after catch ability that Arthur Smith likes. I mean, it depends on price. In my opinion, I wouldn't be like necessarily against OBJ. I think that's certainly one name to consider. I tweeted out earlier like a list of guys I think to me like the guys I'd probably be looking at. I mean, I just love Allen Robinson, but he's probably going to be too expensive. Cortland Sutton is one that I like. We'll see how big his price is. Mike Williams from the Chargers, DJ Shark, Michael Gallup. If Jacoby Myers or Preston Williams don't get RFA, like big money RFA deals, like second round tenders or anything, maybe those guys could be an option. So we'll see. But I do think they're likely to sign a free agent receiver. But it probably, the price of that receiver probably depends on what they do with Ridley, whether they trade him, keep him, extend him, whatever. I think we're still very much in an unknown area with Ridley in terms of what his long-term future with the team will be. I think if the Falcons were to get a really good offer for Ridley, they might just not be able to pass it up, but it depends. We don't really know yet what that's going to look like. What do you guys think about OBJ coming to the Falcons next year?
Yeah, I got that question on Twitter earlier, and, I thought about it for about a half a second, and yeah, absolutely. I think this team, if you have an opportunity to buy low, which, maybe we don't, maybe he's still going to be too costly for, what Terry Fontenot's looking to do in 2022, but if you can buy low on a talent like OBJ, that's absolutely something you ought to be doing. This Falcons team is going to need playmakers, even if Ridley comes back and is ready to go, resurgent, looking like the Calvin Ridley of 2020. You could still use a complementary piece like OBJ. So, this offense should be as good as it possibly can be, because we're looking at this team contending next year, if they do, based on the strength of the offense. You're still trying to, hopefully navigate the final years of Matt Ryan's relative prime and keep this passing game humming. So he'd absolutely be a guy I would love for the Falcons to pick up, even if he does end up spending some time with the Saints this year and gets that stink on him. I think it'd be worth doing.
I don't think they'll be in the market for a big money wide receiver, but man, if they were, who I think would be perfect for this team is Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I would love that.
The big-bodied guy that would be absolutely sublime in Arthur Smith's offense. The guy that can go up for those contested catches, and Matt Ryan would be the best quarterback he's ever played with by far.
Yeah.
This is Bortles' erasure.
Don't slander my son
Bortles was, I
Vikings.
think, a Pro Bowler that year.
He was, yeah.
The greatest garbage time season I've ever seen, and
Yep.
Jalen Hurts is now giving him a run for his money this year.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would love Allen Robinson. I feel like he's going to get $20 million because I think everyone knows he's great, and it's just the Bears that are causing him to have a down year. But, man, if he was, like, a little bit cheaper, like if you could get him for, like, $15 million a year or something, man, I would love that. But if the Falcons are going to be signing one of these really expensive receivers, it's probably after a Ridley trade. And I think if you do get a premium pick back for Ridley, that's an option that I think makes sense for this team. But, it really just depends. There's a lot that goes into that decision.
If they do have Ridley and he's playing next year, you mentioned Cortland Sutton. Another name I want to throw out there is I like Christian Kirk a lot. And I think with what Arizona has, I mean, I don't know that they make it a priority to bring him back. But he's another name I'd love. I mean, I think that would be a great pairing with Ridley.
Yeah, I like
he's
that too.
awesome in the red zone too, which I feel like he just scores out of nowhere every other week. Like he's one of my guys in fantasy, so I'm always keeping tabs on him. And
Yeah,
he's
good.
He's like the fourth or fifth receiver in Arizona just because of
Right.
the talent they have. But he'd be terrific here.
And the chat also brought up someone like Brandon Ayuk,
Yeah.
who I would be all for Brandon Ayuk. Like that relationship in San Francisco does not look like it's a healthy one between Ayuk and Kyle Shanahan. And that's someone we've seen the flashes from him last year. He's someone who I think Arthur Smith would be salivating at, possibly being able to scheme some stuff up for him. I would definitely be willing to part with like a fourth rounder for him.
Yep, he can do not exactly on the ground, I think, to the level of Cordero Patterson, but he's that kind of similar player where you could run him outside and use him as a receiver. I think that's a good name too.
Yeah, I think that's one. This team seems really, really stingy with their draft picks. Like they haven't really been willing to trade anything away except for that 7th for Lee Smith, which I think we can all agree was a good deal. Lee Smith is a pretty good tight end blocker, outlet receiver.
Best tight end on the team this year.
I think more than anything, he's a locker room.
Yeah, I mean, for a 7th,
guy.
like you're not getting anything better than that for a 7th. So I think that's they're not really they don't care about a 7th round pick. But
I still remember Falcons Twitter complaining about that. Like, bro, it's a
God.
late 7th rounder.
Who
Like,
cares?
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, they
Like,
cut their
excuse my
7th round
language.
pick from 2020 like a minute, like without any question. So
And some
nobody
people
cares.
took it as a sign, like, oh, they're not going to get Pitts now. And they just trade.
Oh yeah, they got Lee Smith.
They got Lee Smith.
I mean, Falcons fans, like, I love this fan base, and like a lot of the things that people say about this fan base, like we're unusually toxic or negative, like that's just not true. You look at any other fan base, but we love the minutia. We love the little things, man, and that is absolutely true.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's see. We got Jason Gaines with the $2. He says, "My Braves are World Series champs. Now can the sports media stiffu about ATL not being able to win a championship? Hashtag battle one, hashtag chop on. Also on the subject of the Falcons, would not like to see Nazialek ever punt for us again, and I think Marvin Hall should be on our active roster." Break that down.
I think Hall is on his way to being on the.
Yes,
Him getting signed to the practice squad, that's just for the time being. That's how this process goes. I think in about a week, maybe not this weekend, but next, if not maybe even this weekend, he'll be promoted.
I mean, you see Adrian Peterson was on the Titans practice squad for like an hour and then promoted. Like,
so is Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell with the Ravens earlier. That's just the process.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think Marvin Hall will be activated for Sunday's game. In terms of when he gets to the roster, it could be like cap related at this point. They also haven't put Calvin Ridley on IR, so there may be a question of like trying to figure out what they want to do with the roster at this point. Because they can elevate guys without having to cut anybody, but if they want to like sign someone to the 53 without that, they may have to shuffle guys around. So that may be why he hasn't been promoted yet. With Nazialek, I think honestly Nazilek was playing better. He had that one disastrous game against Tampa Bay, but I think his punts were getting much better up until he got hurt against Washington. I think his kickoffs were not good. And he had that one return for a touchdown. But I think Koo's actually been getting a lot better at kickoffs, so maybe you don't really need your punter to be the kickoff guy anymore with Koo sort of getting better there. Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason I want to see Nazilek versus someone like Dustin Colquitt is because Dustin Colquitt's 39 years old, and he's not going to be your punter next year. He may very well retire. So I just you're not Dustin Colquitt's not a long-term option. I think you need to see if Nazilek can be, so if you have to draft somebody or sign somebody in the offseason. I know people are mentioning J.K. Scott. I honestly don't know why J.K. Scott's not on a roster. He has a great career punting average, really has been a good punter. I don't know why he's not been signed, because I wanted them to sign him when the Falcons had their rash of injuries, but he's still not signed anywhere, so there must be something going on there. I don't know what. But yeah, that's sort of where we are with that. Let's I know folks want to talk about Ridley, so I figured we should talk about Ridley just a little bit in terms of what's going on with him. We don't have any more information than what you guys already know. It does seem to be mental health related with Ridley. There doesn't seem to be a timeline for his return. I think we all sort of agree that, we hope that he's able to deal with whatever is ailing him and he's able to come back, feeling better, and we hope it's soon, but we just don't know. No one seems to know, not even Arthur Smith. I mean, as Josh Kendall said earlier, Arthur Smith wasn't even sure that he wouldn't play Sunday. So I guess it seems like the door's open for him to come back sort of any time, and they haven't put him on IR. But other than that, we don't really know. But I do think it's important for players and people in general to take care of their mental health issues. I think it's something that goes ignored for far too long. And if you don't, you can play through it, you can avoid dealing with it, but it doesn't get better, and it just it festers. And I think it's probably the best thing for him, probably for the team too, that he deals with it now instead of sort of dragging it out. But yeah, do you guys have anything you want to add on Calvin Ridley?
I just say, one of the things that I think, Alan Sturck wrote about earlier this week that I think was important is, Ridley's profile and the profile of a lot of these athletes who are kind of at the top of their game, for them to be able to say, and I think it is important that they can say, I appreciate what the Falcons are doing here by supporting Ridley. And to be able to say, I can't do this, I need this time, whatever the issue might be, is something that you think back historically. Mickey Mantle was the example that I think came to mind for Alan and I when we were reading this story together, is a guy who sort of self-medicated, right? He lost his father. He was under a lot of stress. He didn't handle it well. He ended up, developing sort of a drinking problem. And I'm not saying that every athlete who is struggling with anything is going to do that, but I'm saying there are healthy and unhealthy ways to approach when you're struggling with mental health and mental wellness. And I think that for Ridley to be able to say the healthiest thing for me, is to be able to take this time, however long it may be, and the organization saying, that's the right thing to do. I think that's an important thing to be able to do. And I think it eventually trickles down. I know a lot of people responded to this in our comments and elsewhere saying, well, I can't take that time. Why should a professional athlete be able to do that? They should just go through it. Well, I think in an ideal world, any of us who are struggling would be able to do that. They would be able to take that time, and an organization, no matter who you are, what you work in, what you do and what you're struggling with, would be able to take the time to get right. Because the honest truth is, when you are not doing well mentally, when you do not feel like you can handle things, you are not playing or working at peak performance anyways. And I think anybody, if they're being honest with themselves, who has struggled, and that's most of us, would probably say that, right? So, to me, the fact that Ridley in sort of a high profile spot is able to do this, the Falcons are supporting him, he's able to take that time and hopefully deal with whatever he needs to deal with, and however long it takes him, come out of it better and stronger. that's an important thing, not just in sports, which traditionally has been, very much like the power through, but for every other industry. Look at how many sports metaphors, sports, examples we use in our daily lives at work, and like being able to point to that and say, you're not just going to push through it, but really the mindset should be you take that time is really important.
Yeah, I agree. I
Uh,
think. Yeah,
I'd
go ahead.
like to say just not just beyond Calvin Ridley, even it's so important to have your mental health, checked out. And if, you're out here, struggling with it, to, talk to someone about it and to, get it checked out. And one thing that I really like about where we're going as a society is that back 20, 30, 40 years ago, mental health, that was just like, you know, thrown down and been like, all right, just toughen up, just, the old cliche, be a man about it. But we know that mental health and, depression, anxiety, those are, as real as a broken arm or a physical injury. And they legitimately change the shape of your brain. They change the chemicals of your brain. This isn't stuff where you can just kind of get over it the way that back in the day people said to do so. Um, and I just want to tell everyone out there, if you are struggling through it, there's no need to struggle through it like this in silence. Go get it checked out. What you're going through is very real. And I hope that Calvin Ridley comes back 100%, gets the assistance he needs, and comes back a better person. And everyone out there who's struggling with mental health issues, that they get help for it, and that they end up being better on the other side of it.
Yeah, 100%. I know a lot of people maybe don't know this, but my degree that I have is actually in psychology, and my wife is a mental health counselor as well. So I totally understand Ridley. I don't understand his situation personally because I have no idea what he's going through, but it's a very serious thing. Sports psychology was something I was considering getting into, and you have no idea. A lot of people, a lot of just people, sports watchers don't know, but sports psychology is a huge field, and it's really an emerging field because most people don't understand what it's like to be under the sort of pressure that these guys are under, and helping and there's so many guys that are dealing with it, men and women of all sports, and it's a serious thing, and you just it's hard to quantify how many great careers were never realized because of these mental health issues, and they're sort of coming to the forefront now, more, and I think that's a good thing. But this has always been here, and I think it doesn't help to hide things, and I just encourage everyone to face your issues and get the help you need, because it doesn't make you any less of a man or a strong person to ask for help. I think it takes a strong person to know when to ask for help, and I think I'm glad that Ridley was able to do that now. Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
There's like a ton I could say about this, but I just think from the outside looking in, obviously we don't know, the bare minimum of what he's been dealing with. Things to keep in mind is we don't know how long this has been going on. I think a lot of people, for some reason, it's most likely that they just don't understand how mental health is. Think that you just wake up on a Sunday and mental health, or your whatever you're dealing with, depression, anxiety. It's stuff that usually lingers on, and then just builds up and builds up. He could have been dealing with this going back to last year and just kept putting it off, and it's been boiling up to a breaking point. Again, no idea what he's dealing with, the specifics.
Yeah.
Also, I see what Dave's saying about people wanting to say, oh, well, my job, I can't do this. I can't take time away. First off, maybe you should be able to. I never understood the thought process of saying, well, if this person's doing something that should be allowed. I should be able to, I shouldn't be, or he shouldn't be able to because I can't. You should be able to step away and deal with that. Maybe someday in the future that'll be a norm. God willing, that would be great, I think. But just for right now, it's just you got to be careful with what you say because you have no idea how long he's been dealing with whatever it is he's dealing with. I don't think he's wanting to be away from football. I just think that, the way mental health works, he has to be away from football right now. And, obviously when the time is right, he'll return to football. No idea when that'll be, but all we can do is, be supportive of Ridley. Because it's a difficult situation. It just really is. And hopefully going forward, people look more into mental health. I believe the NFL has actually started putting, I don't know when they started it, but like 8 to 12 hours a week, they have a psychologist at the headquarters or, the headquarters of teams and stuff like that. So yeah, they're going in the right direction. I think another thing to keep in mind is, you could look back and say, well, hell, Babe Ruth would have been out there. Babe Ruth played in a different era. These guys are literally under the scope of everything. When Calvin Ridley has a bad day at work, like, from Twitter, Facebook, you're getting bashed. Like, we live in an era where literally all your business, if you're a well-known person, is on the internet. Like, that's totally different from what Babe Ruth, seeing a column in the newspaper or something, it's a different time. You could easily, whether an actor, sports figure, politician, whatever, if you're well known, you could literally Google your name and just see people shitting on you. And that's got to be something.
And I promise you that they did not know the sciences behind mental health issues in the 1920s.
Well, yeah. And they didn't. And also, like, you look back at, like, the profiles of these old-timey ball players. I remember reading, about Ted Williams. Like, there were so many things with Ted Williams who, had a fantastic career. There were things that he was clearly not well with, and like, this was true of all these guys. Like, they were, to Evan's point, they didn't have their business out there, but they were coping with, the pressure in one way or another. And I think most people do. And, all of us at our jobs, at home with family, whatever it may be. And I think the thing to remember too, the one thing that I'd finish off with here on my part is, from an organizational standpoint, the Falcons, this is the right thing to do for them. Like, we have to think, in a vacuum here too. Like, if they said to Calvin Ridley, tough shit, we're cutting you, or, you can't take the time off, you're going to have to suck it up and play. There are, we keep seeing athletes come out, really great athletes, Lane Johnson with the Eagles and so forth, Ridley, Simone Biles, coming out and saying that they're struggling. And so what you would be saying is the Falcons, if you don't support Ridley, is anybody who's struggling with, and again, we don't know what's going on with Ridley, so I'm not saying this is what he's dealing with, but if you've got anxiety, you've got depression, and you're coming to the Atlanta Falcons and you know that they're an organization that's not going to support you if shit hits the fan for you and you need that time, that's bad news. That's not going to be a player that's going to want to join your team. So I think this is the smart thing for Ridley to do for himself so that he can maximize, his career, his happiness, his life. But it's also the right thing for the org to do.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. Obviously, we could probably go on about this for a while, but we'll sort of leave it there and transition to something infinitely more depressing, which is talking about this Saints game, which I don't think the Falcons match up particularly well in. But I'll let you guys get the first crack at that. Adnan, I'll go to you first. How are you feeling going into the Saints game? Do you think the Falcons have a chance to get the win on Sunday?
Well, I have a personal moral philosophy to never pick against the Falcons in any games against the Saints. So I'll always say that they have a chance. The Saints are on paper big favorites. Doesn't matter who Sean Payton can line up at quarterback. The Saints will still be favorites in this game. Yeah. Because they have a much more complete team overall, top to bottom. They have better depth. Their defense is scary. Their defense has been scary since 2017, and I know that Drew Brees and that offense has always gotten the headlines, but that defense is the reason why the Saints have been winning all of those division titles in a row. So, you also have Alvin Kamara, who, I shudder to think what Alvin Kamara is going to do to this team after what Chuba Hubbard and the Panthers offensive line did against them. Saints have a much better offensive line, much better run game. They don't have the wide receivers that Carolina does. They don't have a DJ Moore. They don't have, their quarterback will be the Falcons will have a much bigger advantage at the quarterback position with Matt Ryan over Trevor Siemian or Taysom Hill. But the Saints have the advantage at almost every other facet other than quarterback, tight end, and a few of these other positions. However, despite all of that, I'm still picking the Falcons because I can't pick against the Falcons. This is one of those freaky division games where anything happens, especially when it's Falcons-Saints. And I will hold out hope that the Falcons can win this on the last-second field goal or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. The fact that these division games are all weird. But yeah, go ahead. Someone was taking a breath to speak, and I cut you off very rudely. So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was literally just taking a breath. But
now you have to speak. It's too late.
Oh yeah, now I'm on the spot. I'm agreeing with Adnan. Like, I'm not going to pick the Falcons to ever lose against Saints. Like, I hate them more than just about anything on earth. But if I'm not confident coming into this game, I think I'd be crazy to say if I was like feeling that way. Last week going into the Panthers game, that was probably the most confident I've been in with the Falcons in quite some time. So naturally they shattered that to pieces. I just hope they play competitively. If they win, that's great. If they don't, I hope they at least show that they belonged on the same field, which last week it was just awful. This week, these rivalry games with the Saints, it can go literally any way. Like, you could be undefeated and it doesn't matter. Like, it's going to be tough. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But, I'm not overly confident. Just hoping for a good game, I guess.
Yeah, totally fair. I think I don't think the Falcons match up particularly well with the Saints. As we said earlier in the show, we talked to Josh. I think the Saints defense is really good. The Falcons offense, I think the Falcons offense will sort of crap on bad defenses, and I think that they'll be really fun to watch against bad defenses. But against good defenses like the Panthers and the Saints, I think they will struggle more. We'll see if they can adjust now that they are expecting not to have Ridley. If the offense looks a little bit more prepared for that absence. But in terms of the Falcons defense matching up with the Saints offense, it's so sketchy. I just don't know that I could. Alvin Kamara is just going to run over the Falcons defense, and it comes down to the Falcons are just going to have to score. I think the magic number is 20 plus points. I think if the Falcons score 20 plus points, they have a good chance of winning. That would have beat the Panthers. It might beat the Saints, who are going to be starting, Trevor Siemian or Taysom Hill or whoever the hell. It doesn't really matter. The Falcons
maybe
have
both.
shown. Yeah, maybe a combination. The Falcons, aren't going to play great defense either way. So the Falcons offense is going to have to figure out a way to get it done. And, I'm not super, I guess, enthused about the prospects of that happening, but it's possible, especially because it's a division game and these are always weird. But where are you at with this one, Dave, at this point? Mr. Cho?
Oh, he's muted.
Oh, he's muted.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Classic me.
No.
It pains me to think of the Falcons not kicking off the Arthur Smith era with a win against the Saints, but I'm kind of thinking that's what's going to happen. It's for all the reasons that we've kind of outlined to this point, is that I think the offense will be better, but if you're looking at this Saints ground game, if you're looking at the way Sean Payton clearly, can't live his life. I was going to say something more inappropriate, but he can't live his life without beating the Falcons, and he sort of builds his entire life around it. I can't see them going into New Orleans after struggling as badly as they did a week ago and overcoming all of that. I'd love to see it. Maybe they'll surprise us, but them sort of beating the Buccaneers with Simeon under center told me a lot about how good this team can be. So I guess our only hope is that they start Hill at quarterback. He's totally erratic, and they squeak one out that way. I really would like to feel much better about this than I do, and I think even Saints fans were saying the trash talk is missing from Falcons fans heading into this game, and I think it's just all of us being terrified that it's not going to end the way we want it to, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Panthers game was such a wet fart of a game. It's just like, no one's excited about this team now. It's like, oh, wow, we just had that total slop fest. Now we have to go on the road to face, a division rival. And honestly, the Falcons have played a lot better on the road. So maybe we should be more excited about this. The Falcons are 0-3 at home, 3-1 on the road, or, neutral, aka London, I guess. So maybe that means they'll actually play better in this game. But it's a tough matchup. I think it's a tough one. But I do agree with what Jason Greenway says in the chat. The Falcons-Saints games are generally always close matchups, and I think this one will be no different. It's really, to me, I think it depends. I think the defense is not going to be great. I think the Falcons' offense is going to have to win this one like they're going to have to win every game this year. And, it's up to Arthur Smith and company to find a way to beat this Saints defense. And honestly, this Saints defense has given most of the teams they've played their worst game of the season in terms of offensive output. So it's entirely possible that they find a way. But,
if they do, that's the best way to start this thing off.
That would literally be like, not a Super Bowl win, but that would be a very exciting moment considering what we've seen in the last couple of years. Like, I honestly, I would, obviously still pay attention to the rest of the season and care what happens, but that would be the highlight, I think, for a lot of us, is going in and beating the Saints. And I think for the fans, for Falcons fans who aren't trash talking and stuff, it's fun to trash talk Saints fans because we just don't like their team and we hate everything about their team. But the Falcons haven't backed up a lot of our shit talking. At least for me, I stopped shit talking a long time ago because I realized the Falcons don't have my back against the Saints. I think we've lost 6 of the last 7 against the Saints. Mm-hmm. Last win was 2019. Then before that was probably 2016 or 2017.
Before that was the Deion Jones pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they're just not backing up the shit talking. So why even bother? But we hate the Saints and we're always going to hate the Saints. So
yep.
Whatever.
Yeah. But when other better teams back up our shit talking,
that's what I
the
love.
Vikings in the playoffs,
right.
And the Bucks in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
That's when Falcons Twitter is in form.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When people say if the year has to be, it used to be 2-14, now it's 2-15, and both wins are over the Saints. You could deal with that. If they beat the Saints twice this year and that's the only 2 games they win the rest of the way, you'll be pretty successful retooling year for the Falcons. Feeling good about them going forward.
Feeling good, yeah.
That's how much beating the Saints means, and you can bet if they do win that I will be going into that home matchup talking a lot of shit.
It reminds me of that meme of where it shows the future, and it's this is how Earth would be if this happened. That would be Earth if the Falcons were 6-7 against.
Right.
Winning 6-7 against the Saints, but we live in an alternate timeline, so.
Yeah, it's dark. It's dark out there. Hopefully the Falcons start playing a little bit better.
If the Saints win both matchups this year, they will tie this all-time series.
Yeah,
no,
so
I can't live in that
happen.
world.
Yeah, we can't let that happen. So Falcons got to win at least one of these, and we'll see. Judging by, like I said, the Falcons are playing a lot better on the road, so maybe they win the road one, which I think will be very important to their very...
They haven't won a single game at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It hasn't even been a home field this year.
No.
I heard all those
0-3.
Let's Go Panthers chants last week.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Embarrassing.
You could hear that on TV.
Yep. So,
and I don't blame the Falcons fan base at all for not showing up. What are they showing up to?
Mm-hmm.
This is fully on the franchise and the team itself.
Oh yeah, it's difficult to watch a lot of weeks. They got to start demonstrating why fans should go pay primo money to go watch them. And
I sure as shit wouldn't.
Right, at this point, certainly not. So, let's. Before we get...
That was the saddest coverage.
That was very sad. That was very sad. Thank you, Adnan, for that one.
Let's put a positive spin on things and say that, Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah.
That's-
Hey,
Yeah.
Patterson
And
is
AJ
fun to watch.
Terrell's blowing up. I mean,
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Dave,
good.
by the way, if we lose this week, I'm not writing another article this season. I'm just announcing that now.
Yeah, but you wrote your
So
contract
again,
in
I'm
blood.
going to note
Yeah.
that contract is in blood.
Yes. You don't
I
want to
don't
mess
know
with
how
blood magic.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't even know. I don't even know how I agreed to that in the first place.
Yeah, that's
You know,
part of the
it-
deal.
it-
You forget it. He makes you forget the process after it's over, and you don't never really remember how you ended up here. You just sort of
Yeah,
one
it's
day.
just
Yeah,
poke your finger with this and just like sign on it.
yeah,
You know, it's funny because like the way we talk about me and the site on the stream is going to
Like
get me on the
Rumpelstiltskin
FBI
or
watch
something.
list, like
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm going on a
Like,
watch
whoa.
list.
Yeah,
what's
OSHA's
going on?
keeping tabs.
yeah. The NLRB is going to be sending you a nice email.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting the OSHA Delta team at some point for sure. So
They'll show up to the Falcoholic offices, but the joke is they don't exist. So they'll be like looking around.
it's just
Yeah.
me and my moose outside this
Yeah,
window.
they'll be like, oh, there's
so.
a lot of
Right.
moose here. I don't know. This seems sketchy. But, yeah. Well, before we get into more moose talk, let me remind folks to please like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. We really appreciate that. Both of those metrics help us out. You can check out the Patreon page if you're interested in supporting the show, getting access to some exclusive content, including ad-free versions of the podcast earlier than they show up on the platforms, and also some exclusive content like the patron Q&A sessions and more that we're working on. And yeah, we just really appreciate everyone for donating, everyone for asking questions, for hanging out in the chat. We just really appreciate you guys. So before we get out of here, I want to thank all my guests and co-hosts this evening. First of all, we have Dave Choate at the Falcoholic himself. Dave, anything that you'd like to plug before we sign off?
Just the customary, like the great work you guys are doing, the weekly features that I think are so good. You know, taking a look at sort of statistically where the teams are in any given week, what the winning and losing scenario looks like, breaking down fantasy advice, which is hopefully helping people do better than I am this year. So hope you're checking us out every day and certainly every week to see what we're up to, because even if the Falcons aren't good, we promise to be pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, pretty good. That's our motto usually. Let's be pretty good. So I think we meet that most of the time. Also, folks, we have with us tonight Adnan Ikic. She's at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything that you're working on you'd like to plug?
Not if the Falcons lose this weekend. Fantasy stud and dud is Mondays. Series history and what if we win or lose is going on Saturday.
Yeah, yep. Definitely check those out as well. And finally, we have Director of Guest Personnel, Evan Birchfield. He's at Evan Birchfield on the Twitters. Evan, anything you're working on you'd like to plug?
Just go to Falcoholic.com for everything. Daily injury reports. I have an article. I don't write often because I'm rarely inspired by this team, but I decided to write about AJ Terrell, and that's on the site. Follow on Facebook, Instagram, _Falcoholic, and then obviously on Twitter, the Falcoholic. Just thanks for hanging out with us.
Yep. And I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin on the Twitters. Give me a follow there. Like I said, check out everything on thefalcoholic.com. I'll be having more stuff this week. My game picks, which I'm doing terribly at over the first 2 weeks that we've been doing that series. That'll be tomorrow, Thursday. Also, some more stuff about the game, like matchups, stats preview. That'll be coming over the next couple days as well. So keep an eye out for that. Follow the show at Falcoholic Live. Like I said, check out all the usual stuff. The Discord, the Patreon, all that stuff is in the show description. If you haven't checked that out, please do. And yeah, guys, we just really appreciate you all hanging out. You can join us again on Sunday after the game with the Saints, where I am contractually obligated to talk about it. So, we will be talking about the game there. Hopefully, it's a positive thing. Maybe it won't be. I'm holding out hope still, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Sunday, usually around 4:15, 4:20, something like that is when we go live, depending on how long the game takes. So check us out there. And we'll just hope for the best with that game. And then we have a late donation here from George, who wants to get a joke in. All right. So he says, the Falcons' official team book is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or Mostly Harmless. So there you go. There's a little Hitchhiker's joke there for you guys, for those of you that have read the book.
So if we score 42 points, we'll win.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, just score.
That's true.
That is the answer.
It should have been against the Dolphins, though.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been perfect. Well, we missed the opportunity for that, but we can still do it against the Saints. So, it'll have to do. It'll have to do.
Well, look at us making literature jokes. Who says
I know,
that
we're so
Falcoholic
classy
isn't
here.
sophisticated?
We're so classy.
We
here
are
at the end of the
extremely
show.
well read.
Yes, we are. All right, guys.
I've read
Thanks so much.
Keep Spot Run cover to cover.
Yep. I don't doubt it. Dave is always sending us lots of long forms to read in the chat.
I
think
never
I've got-
read any of those, Dave. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry.
No, nobody does. I don't know why I do it, but I do.
Dave just wants to show us how well read he is, and I appreciate the flex.
Exactly.
So,
Probably
I
doesn't
haven't read
read
them
them
either.
Dave, one day I'm actually going to read one of those and call you out on it.
Yeah,
and he'll be like,
it's not even like it's lorem ipsum. That's all it is. I'm going to admit it.
just over and over again. Yep. All right, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll see you again on Sunday for our post-game show for Week 9. Until then, have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you on Sunday, folks. Have a great night.